Will George Goh qualify to run for president? It's a matter of discretion, say lawyers. How might businessman George Goh still qualify to run for president in Singapore, if he does not meet the requirement of having been chief executive of a company with at least $500 million in shareholders' equity? Constitutional lawyers say that it will likely come down to the discretion of the Presidential Elections Committee, PEC, as it is unclear whether Mr. Goh will automatically qualify as a candidate.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.
It's unclear whether Mr. Goh will automatically qualify as a candidate. Questions over Mr. Goh's eligibility have emerged since the serial entrepreneur, who brought Harvey Norman to Asia, announced on Monday, June 12, that he intends to stand for election. Mr. Goh was the second person to put himself in the potential running, after Senior Minister Tharman Shanmugaratnam. Speaking to reporters on Tuesday, Mr. Goh said he was confident of meeting the criteria, and that he had put together a team of professionals to help determine his eligibility. The 63-year-old is Group Executive Chairman of Asia International, a Singapore Exchange, SGX, listed investment holding company with a market capitalization of about $45 million, $33 million, as of Wednesday. His website states that he has owned 7 listed companies across Singapore, UK, and Australia with a collective market.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.
His website states that he has owned 7 listed companies across Singapore, UK, and Australia with a collective market capitalization of $3.15 billion. Relying on the deliberative track. To meet the private sector service requirement to be president, an applicant must have served as the chief executive of a company for at least 3 years. During this time, the company must, on average, have shareholders' equity of at least $500 million and made profit after tax for the entire time. Until the PEC decides, there will be uncertainty as to whether Mr. Goh will be on the ballot, said Associate Professor Eugene Tan of the Singapore Management University Yong Pung Hau School of Law. From Mr. Goh's press statement and remarks to media on his candidacy, it appears that he does not automatically qualify to stand for election under the private sector service requirement, said Association Professor Tan. He probably is going to rely on the private sector deliberative track to secure eligibility, he told 24newsread.blogspot.com. Under this track, the PEC will consider whether the nature of the office, the size and complexity of the organization and the applicant's performance in that office is comparable to the experience and ability of a chief executive of a typical company with shareholders' equity of at least $500 million. The PEC may also consider any other factors it sees fit, as to whether an applicant has the experience and ability to effectively carry out the president's functions and duties. In other words, if he qualifies automatically and is a person of integrity, good character, and reputation, the PEC is duty-bound to issue him a certificate of eligibility, said Association Professor Tan. But on the deliberative track, he is requesting the PEC to exercise discretion and grant him a certificate of eligibility, which will hinge on whether the PEC is satisfied in the manner as described above. $500 million, a hard rule. Mr. Ben Chester Chong, a law lecturer at the Singapore University of Social Sciences, similarly said it was not immediately clear whether Mr. Goh meets the shareholders' equity requirement. He pointed out that in the past 3 financial years, Asia International made profit after tax, but its total shareholders' equity was below $500 million. Mr. Chong said that based on his understanding, the $500 million shareholders' equity is a hard rule that applicants must still meet, even under the deliberative track. He added that it was also not clear which company Mr. Goh was relying on to meet the shareholders' equity requirement. According to Mr. Goh's website, he is concurrently also the founder and director of Harvey Norman Asia, and founder and group chairman of ITG International, which has a property development business. He was previously the chairman of international operations at sporting company Rebel Sport, founder and director of VGO Corporation, known for the world of sports stores, founder and director of water treatment solutions provider United Envirotech, and founder and chairman of property fund manager SGL Capital Investment Management. The Constitution is quite clear that the presidential election applicant needs to be a person who is the most senior executive, however named in that entity, and who is principally responsible for the management and conduct of the entity's business and operations, said Mr. Chong. One would assume holding a co-founder role or majority shareholder alone is insufficient if it's not in a senior executive capacity that is equivalent to CEO, he added. Mr. Chong also said that allowing an applicant to aggregate a portfolio of companies at different points in time, to reach $500 million in shareholders' equity, would defeat the purpose of the legislative amendment that brought about this requirement. The private sector service requirement was raised from $100 million paid-up capital to $500 million shareholders' equity in 2016. The updated quantitative threshold of $500 million reflects the vastly different economic climate today, compared to 25 years ago, then Deputy Prime Minister Teo Chee-hean told Parliament at the time. Assistant Professor Benjamin Joshua Ong, also of the SMU Yongpung Hao School of Law, said that based on his reading of the Constitution, one cannot add up multiple companies' shareholders' equity to make up the $500 million. Even if you don't meet the requirement of $500 million shareholders' equity for one company, the PEC can, in its discretion, take the view that you have had a comparable level of experience and ability to someone who has been chief executive of one company with shareholders' equity of $500 million or above, he said, concurring with Association Professor Tan. Assistant Professor Ong said this was a matter for the PEC's discretion, and according to the Constitution, the PEC's decision in this regard is final and is not subject to appeal or review in any court. Shareholders' equity to make up the $500 million. Even if you don't meet the requirement of $500 million shareholders' equity for one company, the PEC can, in its discretion, take the view that you have had a comparable level of experience and ability to someone who has been chief executive of one company with shareholders' equity of $500 million or above, he said, concurring with Association Professor Tan. Assistant Professor Ong said this was a matter for the PEC's discretion, and according to the Constitution, the PEC's decision in this regard is final and is not subject to appeal or review in any court. This regard is final and is not subject to appeal or review in any court.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and click our bell icon for new videos.